What if I told you that by the year 2030, Apple will no longer make most of its money from selling iPhones? In fact, the device you're holding right now might become the least important thing Apple sells. Welcome back to iProfit Insights, where we break down exactly how the world's biggest tech companies make their money. Today, we're doing something we've never done before. We're not looking at Apple's past. We're not even looking at Apple today. We're traveling forward in time, to the year 2030, and mapping out the Apple business machine of the future. By the end of this video, you'll understand where Apple's next $1 trillion is coming from, what products are quietly being built right now, and why Apple's biggest moneymaker in 2030 hasn't even launched yet. Let's go. Before we go to 2030, we need to understand where Apple is right now, because the future always grows from the present. Apple, as of the mid-2020s, is a company that generates somewhere in the range of $380 to $400 billion in annual revenue. That's not a small number. That's bigger than the GDP of entire countries. Now here's the interesting thing. When most people think about Apple, they think iPhones. And yes, iPhone revenue makes up roughly half of Apple's total income. But here's what most people completely miss. That percentage has been shrinking, slowly, steadily, year after year. Back in 2015, the iPhone represented nearly 2/3 of Apple's revenue. Today, it's hovering around 50%. And by 2030? Analysts and industry insiders believe it could drop to around 35 to 40%. That sounds alarming at first. But here's the shocking part, Apple's total revenue isn't going down. It's going up. What's happening is that the rest of Apple's empire is growing so fast, it's actually outpacing the iPhone itself. So the real question isn't, will Apple sell fewer iPhones? The real question is, what's going to replace the iPhone as Apple's crown jewel? And the answer to that question is worth staying for. Let's talk about Apple services, because this is the story most people are sleeping on. Right now, Apple services, which includes the App Store, Apple Music, Apple TV+, iCloud, Apple Pay, Apple Arcade, and more, generates well over $90 billion per year. And that number is climbing fast. Here's why this matters so much. When Apple sells you an iPhone, they make money once. When you subscribe to iCloud storage, Apple makes money every single month, without building anything new, without shipping anything, without a single factory running. That's the magic of subscription revenue. It's predictable. It compounds. And it scales without limit. Now think about this. Apple has over 2 billion active devices in the world right now. 2 billion. Every single one of those devices is a potential subscriber. And Apple's conversion rate, meaning the percentage of device owners who pay for at least one service, has been growing steadily every year. By 2030, most projections suggest Apple's services segment could be pulling in somewhere between $150 billion and $200 billion annually. Some optimistic forecasts go even higher. What most people don't realize is that Apple services has profit margins that hardware could never touch. iPhones have margins around 35 to 40%, already impressive. But Apple services? The margin is estimated to be closer to 70 to 75%. That means for every dollar Apple earns from services, they keep 70 cents or more as profit. This is the business model shift hiding in plain sight. Apple is quietly transforming from a hardware company into a software and services empire, and the hardware is becoming the entry ticket to that empire. And this changes everything about how we should think about Apple in 2030. Now let's talk about something that's going to be at the very core of Apple's 2030 story, artificial intelligence. Apple has been famously late to the generative AI party. While companies like Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI were making headlines, Apple stayed quiet. But here's what Apple has always done throughout its entire history: it watches, it waits, and then it executes in a way nobody expects. Apple's approach to AI is fundamentally different from its competitors. Where Google and Microsoft built AI that lives in the cloud, meaning your data gets sent to a server somewhere far away, Apple has been building AI that runs on the device itself. They call this on-device AI, and they have their own branding for it, Apple Intelligence. Why does this matter so much? Because of privacy. Because speed. And because of monetization. Think about it this way. If your AI assistant runs on your iPhone without ever sending your data to a remote server, Apple has a massive selling point in a world that's increasingly worried about digital privacy. This isn't just a feel-good feature. This is a genuine competitive moat. By 2030, Apple Intelligence is expected to be deeply embedded in every Apple product, from your iPhone to your Mac to, yes, your wrist. It'll understand your habits, predict your needs, draft your emails, manage your calendar, summarize your meetings, and do all of this without leaving your device. But here's the business angle that makes this really interesting. Apple doesn't just want to build a better Siri. Apple wants AI to become the reason you stay inside the Apple ecosystem, forever. And once you're inside that ecosystem, you subscribe to more services. You buy more devices. You become, in business terms, a high lifetime value customer. Apple's AI strategy isn't just about technology. It's about locking in loyalty for the next decade. Now let's talk about the product that might just be Apple's iPhone moment for the next generation, spatial computing. When Apple unveiled the Vision Pro, the tech world had two reactions. Half the people said it was revolutionary. The other half said it was too expensive, too clunky, and too early. And honestly, both sides were right. The first generation of Vision Pro was never meant for the masses. It was a signal. It was Apple telling the world, this is where we're going. Just like the first iPhone was expensive and rough around the edges before it changed everything. Here's what matters for 2030. Apple is expected to launch multiple generations of its mixed reality headset over the next few years, each one thinner, lighter, cheaper, and more powerful. The rumored mid-range model, sometimes called Apple Vision, without the Pro, could potentially hit a price point accessible to a much wider audience. And this is where it gets really fascinating from a business perspective. Spatial computing, the ability to place digital content in your physical space, isn't just a cool party trick. It's a potential replacement for the laptop, for the television, for the movie theater experience, for the office monitor, even, eventually, for the smartphone screen itself. If Apple can get spatial computing right by 2030, they won't just be selling a new device. They'll be creating an entirely new category of consumption, and a new platform for their entire services ecosystem to run on. Imagine paying for Apple TV Plus and watching it on a 200-inch virtual screen in your living room, without owning a 200-inch TV. Imagine your FaceTime calls feeling like the person is sitting right across from you. Imagine your entire workflow, email, documents, design tools, floating in the air around you. That's the world Apple is betting on. And if they pull it off, every single one of those experiences flows through Apple's services. Every subscription. Every payment. Every app. This is the long game. And Apple has always been very, very good at playing it. Here's a section that might surprise you. And it's one of the most important parts of this entire video. By 2030, Apple may be one of the most powerful players in the global healthcare industry. Now before you dismiss that, hear me out. The Apple Watch already does things that were unimaginable just 10 years ago. It detects irregular heartbeats. It measures blood oxygen levels. It can detect when you've fallen down. It can generate an ECG, an electrocardiogram, right on your wrist. And Apple isn't stopping there. Apple has been quietly building one of the largest health research operations in the world. They've partnered with hospitals, research institutions, and medical groups to study how wearable data can help detect diseases, things like diabetes, Parkinson's, depression, and sleep disorders, earlier than ever before. There are reports that Apple has been working on non-invasive blood glucose monitoring, a feature that would be nothing short of a revolution for the hundreds of millions of people living with diabetes worldwide. If Apple cracks this technology and embeds it in a future Apple Watch, the device doesn't just become a smartwatch. It becomes a medical device. And medical devices operate in a completely different business universe. Insurance companies pay for them. Healthcare systems integrate them. Governments fund research around them. The revenue potential is staggering. By 2030, Apple Health could be a platform that connects your wearable data to your doctor, your pharmacist, your insurance provider, and your fitness coach, all with your permission, all secured by Apple's privacy framework. What most people don't realize is that Tim Cook himself has said, on record, that Apple's greatest contribution to mankind will be in health. He didn't say technology. He didn't say design. He said health. That's not a casual statement from the CEO of one of the world's most valuable companies. That's a roadmap. Here's another piece of the 2030 Apple puzzle that flies under the radar: financial services. Apple Pay already processes hundreds of billions of dollars in transactions every year. Apple Card, their credit card partnership with Goldman Sachs, gave Apple deep experience in understanding how consumers interact with financial products. Now think about where this goes by 2030. Apple is already building the infrastructure for a full financial super app experience. Buy now, pay later features. High-yield savings accounts. Peer-to-peer payments. Insurance products. Investment platforms. We're not quite there yet, but the direction is unmistakable. Every year, Apple gets a little deeper into the financial layer of your life. Here's why this is so powerful as a business strategy. Financial services have incredible margins and incredible stickiness. Once your bank account is connected to your iPhone. Once your credit card is Apple Card. Once your mortgage payment goes through Apple Pay. Once your retirement savings are managed through an Apple investment product, you are not leaving. You are not switching to Android. You are not going anywhere. This is the flywheel Apple is building. Each service they add makes every other service more valuable. Each new product deepens your dependence, not in a dark way, but in a genuinely useful way. By 2030, Apple's financial services revenue could be a major line item in their earnings reports. And more importantly, it further cements Apple as the operating system of modern life. Now, and this is important, let's not pretend Apple's path to 2030 is a straight line to the stars. There are real threats. Real risks. And understanding them makes this story even more compelling. First, regulation. Governments around the world, in the United States, Europe, and Asia, are increasingly looking at Apple's business practices with a critical eye. The App Store fees, the walled garden ecosystem, the control Apple has over developers, these are under serious legal and regulatory scrutiny. If regulators force Apple to open its ecosystem, the service's revenue model takes a hit. Second, competition from China. Huawei, Xiaomi, and other Chinese manufacturers are building high-quality devices at prices Apple simply cannot match. In emerging markets, which represent the majority of the world's smartphone buyers, Chinese brands have a strong hold. Apple's growth in these markets faces real friction. Third, and this one's fascinating, the AI arms race. Apple may have on-device AI, but Google, Microsoft, Samsung, and a wave of AI-native startups are not standing still. If a competitor builds an AI experience so good that it pulls users away from Apple's ecosystem, the loyalty that Apple has spent decades building could begin to erode. But here's the thing about Apple. They have survived, and actually thrived, through every technology shift of the last 30 years. The shift from desktop to laptop. From laptop to smartphone. From physical media to streaming. From cash to digital payments. Every single time, the world said Apple was behind. And every single time, Apple found a way to not just catch up, but to define the category. Betting against Apple in 2030 is a bold move. And history suggests it's not a wise one. Let's bring this all together with the big picture financial view. Apple crossed a $3 trillion market valuation at various points in the mid-2020s. That number already seemed almost incomprehensible. But what could Apple be worth by 2030? Here's how the math works, in simple terms. If Apple's services business grows to $175 billion or more annually, with margins near 75%, that segment alone could justify a valuation of over $2 trillion based on how the market values software businesses. Add in the hardware revenue, the healthcare platform, the financial services layer, the spatial computing ecosystem, and the AI integration, and you have a company that, by some projections, could carry a market cap in the range of $5 to $7 trillion by the end of the decade. That's not guaranteed. That's not certain. But it's not fantasy either. It's a logical projection of current trends, executed by a company with extraordinary engineering talent, an unmatched brand, and the most loyal consumer base in the history of technology. What Apple is building, quietly, methodically, year after year, is not just the next great product. It's the infrastructure of daily life for over 1 billion people. And when you own the infrastructure, you own the money that flows through it. So let's step back and take in the full picture. Apple in 2030 is not just a phone company. It's not even just a tech company. It's a platform that lives at the intersection of your health, your money, your entertainment, your productivity, and your physical world. The iPhone, the device that changed everything, will still exist. But it will be one piece of a much larger, much more valuable ecosystem. An ecosystem held together by artificial intelligence, powered by services, protected by privacy, and expanding into healthcare, finance, and spatial computing. The companies that figured out how to build platforms, not just products, are the ones that endure. Amazon didn't just sell books. Google didn't just build a search bar. And Apple isn't just making phones. They're building the operating system of human life in the 21st century. And if the last 30 years have taught us anything, it's that when Apple makes a bet on the future, it's usually worth paying attention. If this video gave you a new way of seeing Apple, and the bigger game being played in the world of tech and business, then make sure you subscribe to iProfit Insights. Every week, we break down the business strategies, money models, and hidden mechanics behind the world's most powerful companies. Because understanding how they make money, that's how you start thinking like them. See you in the next one.